Like, do you or your team start to have a sense of, all right, I know they're going to be a competitor, or I know that they're going to probably want to cycle out, even though they think I don't want to cycle out. I
Right.
want to stay in this for a long term.
Definitely,
Does that happen?
definitely. There's yeah, we definitely have a lot of pattern recognition around that, and there's a lot of coaching. People coach founders to tell acquirers what they want to hear. Like, I want to stay on, but then
Right.
they don't. So then you do have to look for, like, what are the things. Oh, like, really want to take a step back. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, but I want to stay on, and I'll stay on and do this for you. Like, that's probably, you got to kind of read into that, and you got to say, no, I've seen this too many times. Like, you don't want to stay on. You will be a
Yeah.
happier person for transitioning out of this business, and we'll get a great person in that you can be confident in and proud of, and that's wanting to prove themselves the way you wanted to prove yourself.
All right, Ramsey. Very, very good to have you on the program. Ramsey Sahyoun. Did I get that right? Sahyoun. Sahyoun. Perfect. I will. Sahyoun. Laser imprinted in my brain now.
That's right.
You're the head of A. Is that your official title at Evergreen?
My official title is co-founder and M&A partner. So, but yeah, I lead our M&A
Perfect.
at Evergreen,
Perfect.
and co-founded the company with Jeff.
I came across you guys a number of years ago. I think a lot of MSPs out in the market know about you guys. They've heard of you guys. They've seen you at a trade show or two. But for those that may be in more obscure areas of the world, maybe give us a quick overview of Evergreen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we did meet many years ago, when I don't even know if we owned an MSP when we first met. Yeah, it's just cool to be here now. Yeah, I co-founded Evergreen in 2017, and really, the 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 vision of the company, was to be the best home for businesses and their leaders. That was what we started with. That was a really blank canvas before we identified the MSP industry as an area that we wanted to invest in. We kind of set that out as our mission, and there are two things for us uh, that kind of would define what the best home for businesses and their leaders is. And the first thing is permanence, or a long time horizon. So I think if you're going to be a home for a business, you have to be a true home for it. You can't just be in it for 3 or 5 years. You need to own the business for the long term. And I also think you need to be home for individual companies. I think there's there's a lot of roll ups in this industry that, um, put companies under a single brand and create one company. That's not really a home for businesses. So we believe in preserving the brand and the team and the names of the companies that we acquire. So with that as kind of the foundation, we got into the MSP space in late 2017, and we found that the model of decentralized operating model and this kind of indefinite time horizon really resonated with MSPs, because it's such a service, customer intimacy oriented business that I think those two things work really well. So today we have about 90 operating companies as part of Evergreen, and we're growing quickly. We did 25 MSP acquisitions last year, so I think our models really resonated with business owners at the front end, and then it's also, the companies have grown really well organically post acquisition, which is critical. Anyone can buy companies, but having them grow and perform well post close is the real trick. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the backstory.
So just forgive my ignorance, but so you didn't start as an MSP. Is it safe to say that you started almost like a holding company for MSPs
That's right.
first?
That's what Evergreen is. Evergreen is a holding company. Evergreen itself is not a private equity fund, but we're not an MSP. We're a holding company that is designed to be a home for MSPs. So
You know,
yeah,
I remember, and you probably do as well, that leading through the ascendancy, I still think we're in the ascendancy of managed services. We haven't stopped growing as a profession, but certainly in the first 20 years, everybody who was my age, and then suddenly everybody that I see at trade shows are younger than me.
yeah,
So I'm assuming that that's what the average, MSP business owner started to realize, is that these people are getting really young, or I'm just growing old, or both. And so that model that you present is unique because there wasn't a generational transfer or exit strategy that didn't involve another MSP buying them out. Is that what you looked at and saw? Hey, there's a need here for something different.
definitely, definitely. And if I think back to 2017 when we first started doing this, I think we were pretty early to it. Now there's obviously a lot of private equity activity in the MSP market. That wasn't the case, 7 or 8 years ago. So you're right. I mean, there were a few people buying MSPs that were like institutionally backed, but there was more. It was MSPs. The valuations were way lower, and just the options for exits for business owners that had spent a long time building their company paled in comparison to what you have out there now. So that's definitely been the case. We saw that opportunity. Yeah, I don't think we imagined that it would, get as big as it's gotten, and that the people would be attracted to this market. Like we didn't foresee that. We just saw kind of the opportunity.
When you're considering a profession like managed services, where the owner operator is, it's not like a law firm or a traditional licensed profession where there are partners in a firm, right? Like the MSPs never really had a firm mentality where they could have other partners who come up in the company and they buy the older partner out, and there's like a proven succession model for legal, accounting, even some medical, right? We just never had that. So I almost see Evergreen as being that kind of mold for an MSP getting out, wanting to do something new. They're just ready to retire. Talk to me about how you guys see that, because I take it that you want the legacy owners to stay involved. Is that a requirement? I guess that's my first question.
Yeah, yeah. So no, it's not a requirement. I would actually say in the majority of cases, an owner is coming to us because they want to transition out of the business. If they didn't, then they would likely just want to keep owning 100% of what is a good business. Actually, in the majority of cases, we are in slightly more than 50% of cases. I'll say we're facilitating a succession plan for the owner, and we're often bringing in a CEO to take over as the leader of that business. So that's a big part of what we do, is helping owners not just sell their company, but actually have a succession plan, like, and actually have a successor, and actually have the business be multi-generational. That's a big part of what we do. We also have owners who just want to de-risk financially. They might be younger, they might be in their prime earning careers, and they want to stay with the business. Those are kind of the two paths, and we have incentives for them to continue to be financially rewarded for growing their business under our ownership, while kind of really de-risking themselves from full ownership of the business. So those are really the two paths. They're pretty kind of well defined. There's either the transition out path, or there's the de-risk and grow with us.
Yeah. So I have a question, and I'm curious as to your thoughts, because I have some pretty well publicized thoughts about roll-ups, right?
Yeah,
Specifically MSP roll-ups, which I've seen a lot of attempts at roll-ups, and I think the evidence is pretty clear. So I don't even think my opinion matters, because I don't think the roll-up strategy has worked. If it has worked, I haven't seen the roll-up strategy, publicized in a type of, really, well-known case study.
yeah.
You guys don't have that approach. Did you look at roll-ups and say, "Hey, we're not going to take that track," or walk me through like how you approached the roll-up issue when you were coming out in
Yeah,
17?
we totally did. I mean, I remember looking in. I won't get into like names of companies, but I remember in 2017 looking at the people that had rolled up MSPs, and by and large they hadn't gone well. And that informed our. We already had this kind of bias towards decentralization, just because it was just in our bones, and a lot of the companies that we look up to have that model. But it really reinforced it when we saw the performance of the traditional roll up in the MSP. You would just, again, like you said, you would see it in the numbers. Like it was just, you'd have churn, and churn kills you in the managed services business, and you can't outrun churn with cost synergies. You just can't. Like over a long period of time, you need to attract and retain your customers, and to the extent that a traditional roll up strategy is a barrier to that, I think that's why they haven't been successful. So it definitely informed our strategy.
Yeah. So do you guys have any layer of I don't want to say commonality, that's the wrong term. Any layer of scale, or hey, we're all going to use the same HR platform or get the same insurance, or do anything that we could replicate across all the portfolio companies? Is that part of the model or no?
Yeah, yeah. So we try to keep that very small, like those any I guess layer of centralization. But there are a few things. So we have a common ERP system, so financial visibility, everybody's reporting their numbers in the same way in the same system. We have a common CRM system, so we have visibility into like what is the global pipeline looking like, and at each individual company. And then from a vendor standpoint, we have master agreements in place with, you know, pretty much probably any vendor you can think of. We don't standardize on a single solution. Vendors, I think we can be difficult for some vendors to comprehend. They'll call me and be like, "Hey, we can get all your MSPs on it." And it's just like, we don't do that. But we have a lot of scale just without standardizing. We still have a lot of scale with most vendors. So we have master agreements in place there that generally can drive better pricing or better margins on certain products. So those are really the three things. And then I guess the fourth thing would be, we've really tried over the last 7 years to codify the best practices, and like how do we drive growth and value in an MSP, and we try to have those spread and adopt it, not in a top down way, but I think there's a lot of value in bringing together just bright spots from every company and codifying it. So that would kind of be the fourth thing that's a little squishier. But the three I mentioned before are, you know, more hard and fast things.
Are MSPs finding you, or are you having to go and find them?
But we got to go find them.
Really? I would think everyone would be flocking to, and it's not to say that, I didn't mean that in a pejorative sense. I just meaning that MSPs who are searching for a transition, it would seem like you're very unique. There's not a lot of, I'm not aware of really anyone else that's out there with that same message as you guys have.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. I would say getting to the point. There's so much noise if you're an MSP, as far as people, someone trying to sell you something, someone trying to buy your business, someone trying to do whatever. That I think the where we really have to chase people is just to get the 30-minute Teams call, the 30-minute meeting, like that that first step is where we need to chase people. From there, I think the model really resonates, and we have really good uptake from there. It's just, I just think there's so much noise, and that's been, I think, the biggest challenge I've faced over the last several years as this industry has really grown and matured, is just cutting through the noise of an MSP owner's day is a real challenge. So we think about it every day.
Yeah, I can see that absolutely. I personally am witness to a lot of MSPs who say, I get search funds. They're calling me up every single day, right? People don't know what a search fund is, right? They're people looking for a deal in search of money to do the deal, right? That's how I look at them. And so it's very. I don't know, slight any valid search fund people out there, but I mean, it tends to be more fluff and vaporware than actual capacity to do a deal. And there could be a lot of burnout, like MSPs who say, "Oh, there's another person who wants to sell me on something." Yeah, I mean, you guys have a good track record. I mean, having 90 MSPs who've done the deal with you guys, that's not a small feat in its own
Yeah,
right.
yeah. We've built the team to do it. So, we've got 20 people here in the office with me today that, uh, that it takes a lot of work to acquire a company, let alone 90 of them. Uh, but yeah, it's a lot. But to the previous point, when I first started this, I would reach out to the MSPs myself, and you could send a email and get a response half the time, like saying, "Hey, we ever considered selling the business? Looks like you built a really nice company." And I would do that, and it would be calendar full of talking to MSPs that no longer works at all. And then it becomes more about your track record. Does someone know somebody that's sold to you? Are you at the industry events? Are you actually helping people create value in their business outside of just buying the business? So it's changed a lot as far as how you need to reach MSPs.
Sure. A quick question about size and geography. Are you focused on any one area? Obviously, I'm assuming US, but are you a global company in terms of
We
who you're
are,
looking for?
yeah, yeah. So we're in the US, we're in Canada, have been since 2021. And then last year is when we really got into the UK and Australia and New Zealand. So those are the markets that we operate in today.
Yeah, makes sense. English speaking, pretty solid similarities, commonalities in the MSP sector across
That's right.
those.
That's right.
Size, like, are you looking for? Do you have any size limits, either low or high, that you look for?
Yeah, yeah, more low. Our kind of minimum size threshold is 3 million of revenue and 500,000 of EBITDA. And when we look at EBITDA, it's got to be EBITDA after paying the owner what you would need to pay a CEO of a $3 million MSP, which is usually 200 or $250,000 of total compensation. So that's kind of the minimum size threshold. No real upper limit. The overall company is a little over 1 billion of total revenue. So we have today. There's not really an upper limit on what we would consider from a size standpoint. But our average company is that we acquire is probably around 8 million of revenue and a little bit north of 1 million of EBITDA.
That makes sense. I mean, I guess the upper limits, the larger they get, the more opportunities they might have in terms of just these types of transitions. But I mean, even still, there's a fair amount to be said, I would imagine, that, hey, I'm dealing with a group that understands me and understands my profession versus there's a fair number of private equity groups out there who they understand finance, but do they understand MSPs? Meaning, do they have more than just one portfolio company who happens to be in MSP?
Right.
Right? There's like not a lot of that specialization.
There's not a lot, and I before starting Evergreen, I worked in private equity, and I loved it. Like it's the buying private companies from business owners is like a super rewarding thing to do, but you do end up being very removed from the operations of the company that you bought and removed from the value that the company provides to their customers, how that gets delivered and communicated. And so, yeah, we work pretty hard with our whole team to make sure that they develop an understanding of these companies aren't just revenue and EBITDA. Like we gotta, so we call them Gemba visits, but we have really everyone on our M&A team spend time at operating companies, not just like talking to the founder, but like talking to the people that are touching the customers every day. Because it's really important, and it makes you a better investor, really, because you understand what it is you're actually buying, and there's always opportunity in.
Sure. A quick jaunt down the portfolio companies. I don't know what else to call them, but the companies that are already in the Evergreen house. I assume there could be some overlap, some competition, but there could also be some synergy. How do you guys handle that? Like, do they talk to each other? Or is that encouraged? How does that happen?
Yeah, yeah. They do talk to each other. The way that the company is organized is regionally. So we have 11 regions, and each region has, call it 10 operating companies within it. And there's a lot of connectivity and collaboration between those 10, like many of the you know, peer groups that
Got
you
it.
see in the
Yeah.
industry. It's like that. So that sharing and collaboration and best practice sharing is very encouraged. But the companies do compete. We don't find that they run into each other very often. We have two companies that we own in Pittsburgh that are two of the leading MSPs in Pittsburgh, and can probably count on one hand the time they've, you know, traded clients or so. It just doesn't happen. I think the market is big enough, and I think most MSPs carve out some niche within the broader market that it doesn't lead to this kind of constant running into each other. So we have a number of markets like Pittsburgh where we own multiple companies, and we've never felt like we have to do anything about it as far as doing anything besides letting them compete. So that's kind of how we've approached it.
So, Ramsey, here's the billion-dollar question. I have to ask it. Why, knowing the success of Evergreen and speaking as a former PE guy yourself, why do you think other private equity firms haven't jumped on this bandwagon? Because this seems, just from a risk standpoint and a overall ongoing operation standpoint, a lot easier than doing a bolt-on, creating an MSP platform play. Am
Yeah.
I missing something there? Like that seems to be the screaming question of, why not do that?
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question. I think the biggest thing is that it's actually downstream from time horizon. So if you're operating on a 3 to 5 year time horizon, the next buyer of a company is going to want, and I don't think this is a rational desire, but it is the desire. The next buyer that's a bigger private equity firm is going to want one integrated brand, like one company. Like that's just what they want. And so if you're pursuing acquiring smaller MSPs to eventually sell to that party, you create that. So I think that is why you don't see people pursuing a more decentralized strategy. And so I think the difference with us is, like, my partners and I are young, like we want to be doing this for a long time. The companies we look up to are, um, Berkshire Hathaway was the big inspiration for starting our company, but also there's companies like Constellation Software that do something similar to what we're doing in software. TransDigm that does it in aerospace. Danaher that does it in life sciences. Like that's like what we see ourselves as trying to build, not trying to sell something to private equity in 5 years. So I think that's why.
Your longer hold company or play.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And we're interested in, like, how do we compound, what is the best approach to compound the value of our company on a 50-year time horizon. It's like that's that so anyway, that versus trying to meet demand for a private equity firm in 3 to 5 years is different. So I think that's why.
Yeah, no, I think I hadn't thought about that. Like, I get the short, 3 to 5 year, turnaround. Who can we sell it? How can we bundle it? I don't. I hear what you're saying. I don't understand it myself, why they would want or think that a single brand is easier. And I'm not knocking those. I know we've got a lot of members who are out there who have that single brand PE backed
Yeah.
model going, and I just don't know, understand the investor mindset behind it, that they would think that that is somehow, I don't know. Yeah, it's
Yeah, no,
weird.
I agree. And I think I I've been in some of those rooms, so I think I have an understand. I think there's a perception that a single brand is easier to manage, and that you have these different companies with these different P&Ls, like that chaos ensues in that
From a financial standpoint, or
just
a brand.
like ease of management
Oh,
standpoint. And
yeah.
I think what we've experienced is that that's not true. Like, there is actually a lot of ease of management in a decentralized system, because there's a lot of trust, and there's people running our businesses, full ownership over the P&L, and they act like owners, and it's actually a very scalable thing to manage. But I think when you sit in the kind of removed seat that a lot of investors sit in, you're like, oh man, like that's how do you even how do you even get your arms around all that, you know? But it's actually it's counterintuitive, but I think it's easier to manage than trying to dictate one central thing across a large company. I think you move slower in that.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd be curious as to your thoughts on watching a business owner, operator, of maybe a founder, and their business management style. This is assuming they come on with you guys and they want to stay along. So maybe they're young or older, but they want to stay on,
Yeah.
but they don't want to take the financial risk anymore. What have you witnessed in the way they maybe change how they operate the company when they're no longer solely responsible for meeting that payroll every week or every
Yeah.
cycle?
It's a great question. And I've seen like such a wide variety or such a wide range of responses. Where it works the best is where like a somebody feels liberated by it, like they can take a little more risk in their business. They can make that, investment they've been hesitating on making. That's the that's that's where it's a positive, like where, oh wow, like they actually became a better CEO by virtue of having that kind of monkey off their back and that burden off their back. I've also seen though where it goes the other way, like there's just a loss of financial motivation, and what you would just go to such great lengths because you owned the business up 100%, that you'd will great performance, and sometimes that can get lost. So those are kind of the two ends of the spectrum. I think when it works really well is when someone feels feels de-risked, but they still love the business and they still love being great and building it better than their peers. And I think it's those
They're
the
competitive.
different types of, yeah, they're competitors. I think that the competitors do really well because that's what you have when you remove the financial, the like pure financial motivation.
You're probably getting better every deal you do, having 90 under your belt already, of watching and maybe, pre LOI or, before you get into the real serious due diligence, understanding where that owner, operator, founder wants to end up, even if they're saying something that's different. Like, do you or your team start to have a sense of, all right, I know they're going to be a competitor, or I know that they're going to probably want to cycle out, even though they think I don't want to cycle out. I want to stay in this for a long term.
Definitely,
Does that happen?
definitely. There's yeah, we definitely have a lot of pattern recognition around that, and there's a lot of coaching. People coach founders to tell acquirers what they want to hear. Like, I want to stay on, but then they don't. So then you do have to look for like, what are the things? Oh, like I really want to take a step back. Like I'm exhausted. Like, but I want to stay on, and I'll stay on and do this for you. Like, that's probably, you got to kind of read into that, and you got to say, no, I've seen this too many times. Like, you don't want to stay on. You will be a happier person for transitioning out of this business, and we'll get a great person in that you can be confident in and proud of, and that's wanting to prove themselves the way you wanted to prove yourself before.
Yeah, I love this story because I like the idea of where we came from. Everybody was a first time founder and owner of a first time MSP,
Yeah.
right? And now we're in the generational shift or transition where we're starting to see a whole new generation come up, and that you have to be right in. I mean, you are in the middle of that shift where you're seeing the old guard, if I can call them that, starting to phase out and transfer their knowledge. I hope transfer their knowledge, and the new generation starting to pick up and benefit from the old guard's battle scars.
Definitely, definitely. One of the things I have come to appreciate that I didn't expect was when we get our companies together, there's this mix of founders that have been at it for 30 years and people that are months into the job of leading an MSP, and I love that the composition of that room, and I hope that is kind of always the composition of the room as we scale, because there's just stuff to be learned from experience, and there's stuff to be learned from the fresh eyes that a first time CEO can take to a business. So it's definitely true.
So, I mean, I'd be remiss in my job to not ask this question, but if you don't want to answer, I understand. But I mean, everybody knows the roll up that strategy eventually goes to a transition to a bigger private equity play. At some point, that might come up. Have you guys been approached? Like, is someone, at the next strata of private equity, wherever you guys hang out, in
Yeah.
Sand Hill Row or London, someone's got to be saying, "Hey, Ramsey is building something pretty cool here. Maybe we should get into it."
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. We think a lot about what our long term ownership structure is. I think that could be public, it could be private. I and there are various options there. I think what we care about is the opportunity to keep who are the right owners to partner with us and continuing to build this company over many decades and compound it and deliver on our mission of being the best home for businesses and their leaders. And that's what we're solving for. And there are a lot of people out there like that. I mentioned some of the companies before: Constellation Software, TransDigm, Danaher. There are a lot of people that have been owners or are owners of those types of businesses that I think I have a lot of excitement about partnering with at some point, whether it's privately or as a public company, because I think those companies have amazing financial track records to value creation. Partnering with like-minded investors is critical. We think about it all the time.
Yeah, I admit you did a good job answering. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but it really has your answer to me says it's a great investment vehicle for the investor, but it's also very flexible for the owner operator transitioning out or the new ones that you put in there. So the business has been de-risked, right? Compared to, let's say, a roll up where you funnel a lot of risk into that one. The platform better do a really good job of integrating all the components that it's buying.
Yeah, you make one bad tech stack decision in a roll
Yeah.
up, and you're you know years to unwind. And it can drive churn and everything like that. So I do. We're diversified within this industry, which makes me sleep a lot better at night.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I thought I knew some stuff, but now that I've talked to you, I have a completely, maybe not different, but certainly a better understanding of what you're doing, and I think it's amazing because I think that outlet is needed for the owners that have worked really hard in starting and blazing a path in managed services for 20, 30 years, and where do they go for their retirement, right? And it's good to know that there's an option like an Evergreen out there that they can go to. So I applaud what you're doing.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, it's super fulfilling to is this we work on the biggest financial transaction of people's lives in most cases. It's very rewarding to do that and do it well. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, Ramsey, I really hope you come back on the show if you have updates and news and just general thoughts that you want to share, because I think from it's not even we hardly talked about MSP operations best practices here. This was more like the financial. Not it was more about the financial value of the managed services profession. at large that I think you represent and have validated. And to me, and to a lot of other, thousands of other MSP owners, that's really nice to you validated their industry, I guess is a short way of saying it.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. They did the hard work of building businesses with these characteristics that make them good investments. It's been that's been one of the cool things to see is the creation of managed services when it meant people had businesses that were not saleable, and now they have very saleable, very valuable assets that they've created, and that's the business model change. And yeah, it's really cool what has happened over the last couple of decades, I would say, to get to this point. Well deserved for people that have worked really hard to do it. It's not easy running one of these companies.
No, it isn't. But I definitely hope you come back in the near future and wish you continued success. Ramsey Sahyoun from Evergreen.